Turning now to Americans gathering for Thanksgiving during a time of economic uncertainty. And inflation data shows that a key figure for the Fed is up 4.1% over the year over year, the highest since January 1991. Recent polling also shows a majority of Americans are very or somewhat concerned about rising prices, which are sapping any wage gains. President Biden has suffered in the polls because of it. But in a new interview with MSNBC, Hillary Clinton, remember her, she's suggesting some Americans are just not sophisticated enough to understand Biden's accomplishments. Take a listen.
But because of the way we are getting our information today, and because of the lack of gatekeepers and people who have a historic perspective, who can help us understand what we are seeing, there is a real vulnerability in the electorate to the kind of demagoguery and disinformation that, unfortunately, the other side is really good at exploiting.
I think we know a few people who might have a comment or two about that. Let's bring in our panel. Shalli Kumar is the chairman of the Republican Hindu Coalition. Tom Borelli is a Newsmax contributor. And Dino Scaros is a presidential historian, professor, and immigration attorney. All right, the queen of condescension seems to strike again. Tom, we'll start with you. Your reaction.
Well, Tom, first, happy Thanksgiving. But look, what else would you expect from Hillary Clinton? You know, the social elite, they're above everything. She's immune to inflation. She's immune to everything. And what's her first reaction is to look down on the American people. Remember, in the 26 campaign, she was called the Trump supporters deplorables. Then she promised to bankrupt coal mining and coal miners. So it's typical for Clinton to carry out with this kind of propaganda. But the evidence doesn't lie. We've seen inflation at a 30-year high. Gasoline prices are up over $1 a gallon. Over a million illegals have been caught trying to come over our southern border. And there are more COVID deaths in 2021 than in 2020. So Biden is doing a horrible job as measured by the polls. And my final point is, look what network she went on to. She went on to MSNBC. You think Rachel Maddow would ask her about Clinton funding the dossier, the Steele dossier, which is the largest political scandal in American history? But no, she went to the safe zone.
Yeah, Shalli, let's talk about that. According to Hillary, it's the Republicans that control the media and control the narrative. They're the elitists. They're the ones that are purveyors of misinformation. Your response?
Well, Tom, first of all, thanks for having me here. She says Americans did not really appreciate that within a year, the Biden administration has passed 2 major pieces of legislation. And what are those? And she called them as extraordinary accomplishment. Yeah. Now, one she's talking about is the 1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. And I spoke on this thing before to you as well. Mm-hmm. That is a total sellout of America. And sometimes I just don't even understand how the MSNBC anchors, you know, like Rachel and Chris and your taker Ali and all that, either they are that stupid or they are just un-American, that we are engaged in a Chinese game to take over by 2049 to become the sole superpower of the world. Now, I don't think we have time to do this show right now, but at some point in time, I would like to go over step by step how China intends to take over America, and this infrastructure bill is a dupe of Americans. Well, it's a sellout of America.
And you know, Dino, to you, and I've only got about 60 seconds here, you know, people expect you to pave roads. I mean, that's what government is supposed to do. But, you know, Biden, you know, you're a historian. President Biden says people are confused. They don't understand supply chains. And now you've got this. Again, so much of leadership is about tone. Have you ever seen anything this tone deaf?
Well, I never want to say never because we have a long history. However, inflation is very simple, Tom. When demand exceeds supply, that's when prices rise. That's when businesses increase their prices, because after all, that's the easiest way to make a profit. Just boost your prices, and people are paying for it because this is how we messed up by the way we handled this pandemic to begin with. The lockdowns, and then giving people all kinds of money that to a lot of people who didn't even need it. And now they're not spending money on gas or going out to eat, and they're hoarding all this money. This is not the people who were devastated. This is a much larger group of people who've got all this money to spend. Now you have these mandates in place, and people don't want to work, and that's why you have the supply shortages.
Yeah, it seems to be pretty simple to me. All right, panelists, stick around. You're going to be coming back shortly. Up next, one Hollywood celebrity is wagging her finger at the media over its coverage of the Waukesha parade. We'll break that down and what's happening as National Report returns.